One of the reporters who covered the aftermath of the crash, Flight 232, 9 News reporter Mark Koebrich, who was working for a national show at the time produced by our parent company. Thanks for coming in.
You bet.
So we have some video that you guys shot out there after the plane crash. As we look at it, talk a little bit about what it was like when you got there.
Well, we were on our way across Iowa. We had done a story in Des Moines. We were on our way to Omaha. And when we got there, the thing that struck me the most, I barely remember that guy, but the thing that struck me the most when we got there were all the people. So there were a lot of things that happened that Al Haynes credits with the survivor count in the crash. And one of them is that, first of all, the Iowa National Guard was on station at Sioux Gateway. So there were like 300 or 400 extra people available to help. And that was a critical factor, getting people out of the wreckage and just finding people, because as the plane cartwheeled, it just emulsified essentially millions of little pieces. And it was shift change at a local trauma center or burn center. So there were hundreds of extra people on board to help with all these injured. And there were a lot of people who were severely or critically injured in the flight, lives they were trying to save. So my first impression of it was, oh my gosh, how did anybody live? And then secondly, where did all these people come from? Because we were there within probably 90 minutes of the crash, and I just couldn't fathom how Little Sioux City got all of those emergency personnel together. And I thought maybe people from the town, maybe a lot of professionals, medical people and military people in the town had just showed up. In fact, it was the National Guard out there and all of these trauma patients who were helping to lift these people out.
You know, we just heard from Jerry talking about how he thinks ultimately this was a miracle, the way that it panned out. It sounds like you think the same.
You know what, Anusha, on our desk in Washington told us, look, because we were on I-80 going across Iowa, and they said, you know, you might want to just kind of drift toward Sioux City, because there's this report of this DC-10 coming in, and he's asked for all the emergency equipment at the airport. So maybe you just drift that direction. We think he's going to land it. No one knew how serious it was. Of course, on board the aircraft they did, but you know, the commercial air industry in the United States is so good and so safe and carries so many millions of people every day and has so few accidents. I mean, even in our newsroom, as you guys know, we are constantly hearing about aircraft in distress, and anymore we virtually ignore them. Well, this was the same situation. Nobody thought that this guy wasn't going to be able to land it, and Captain Haynes, he darn near did. I mean,
he was so close.
They had it to the very end. It was just that last 200 feet when the left wing caught and it cartwheeled, and then devastation. I was also struck, and you saw it in your piece, that one big piece of the aircraft, that was the center of the aircraft. And they think that it survived, and so many people in that section survived because of the rigidity that section got from the wings. Yeah. There's a lot of extra aluminum and steel structure in there, and they thought that might have been a big player in how this all turned out.
And that was the section that Jerry was in. The middle section is where most of the survivors, although the cockpit also broke off and kind of rolled into a cornfield. Everybody in the cockpit survived too.
Right, exactly. And I never got to see the cockpit from our vantage point. All the media was behind a fence, but you could see that big piece, and you could see millions and millions of tiny shards, just little bitty pieces of an aircraft. And I also remember in the days that followed, there was a big hunt for the number 2 engine, that tail engine's fan disc. It was an 8 or 9 foot piece of equipment with fan blades in it, because they wanted to know what happened. They were trying to piece it together. And initially they thought that maybe the engine had just broken off. Of course, then they saw it coming in, it was still there, but a lot of it had disappeared. Well, that fan blade was part of what disappeared, and they found it in a cornfield. General Electric offered $50,000 for anyone who could find that fan blade. It was that important. And a farmer found it in her farm field, not too far away.
Did not know that.
That was a big story for days. And that's how they pieced it all together, that there was an alloy problem in one of the fan blades. I remember doing that story, but it was chaos at the airport. I remember it was very hot, very windy, and very sad.
Yeah.
Very sad. One of those stories you never forget, though.
Yeah, no question.
Hey, thanks for coming in. We
My
appreciate
pleasure.
it.
My pleasure.
Talking about